Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the August 3rd, 2020 full moon in Aquarius, part 2 of 2. And first thing is, it's important to look at the house this falls in your natal chart, as of course this could impact the delineation and interpretation for you. Now, mine is going to fall in the 10th house, and well, the fact that it's an Aquarius in the 10th house, maybe could this be the time that I make my go out publicly? I mean, when you're talking about full moons in astrology, of course, it's about more about unveiling, coming out. It's more public, where the new moon is more introspective. But given that this is the Aquarius in the 10th house, maybe do I finally make this announcement that I'm going to be doing some astrological charts, perhaps, and of course would impact my career. The fact that it's 10th house is the house of career, and it's also, when you're talking about full moons, they can be about unveilings and revelation. Now, that won't manifest the same way for everybody. Somebody else, for example, may be having a full moon in Aquarius transit their 10th house, and it could be about some unveiling of some, maybe the dominant parent or authority figure showing, maybe some idiosyncratic or eccentric behavior. There's something unusual about them that comes out, or you're just tired, exasperated, or full of a dominant parent or authority figure's idiosyncratic, bizarre, or eccentric type unpredictable behavior. Now, I mean, it could come out in so many different ways, but anyway. Now, it's also important to look at the aspects it makes to points in one's chart, as this could impact the delineation and interpretation. Now, mine is going to make almost an exact trine to my natal Gemini moon, so it's going to be very, I mean, this is obviously very auspicious aspect. When many of you may know, when you have a transit moon making a sextile trine to your own natal moon, this is where it can indicate certain, where you feel comfortable and you're not really going to really go much out of a limb or go outside, or expand the horizon, go outside the comfort zone. But the thing about this, though, is what's very good, perhaps for me, is what I stated before, where it could be this possible, announcement or declaration. Maybe I'm going to start doing the astrology charts, which could affect my career and popularity, whatever, and notoriety. 10th house, the fact that it's going to be making almost exact trine to my natal moon in Gemini could be very positive in terms of getting support from a very inquisitive public, because of course Gemini energy can be inquisitive, and the moon can be associated with the public. Now, another thing is that this is going to be Sabian, as far as Sabian symbols go, this is going to be at 11 degrees Aquarius. And the fact is, I mean, as far as the Sabian symbols go at 11 degrees Aquarius, this could be a little bit more combative energy at this time. I mean, you might have somebody even, and you got to remember, you're going to have Mars making a number of adverse aspects. So it's this, and during this full moon, it's really important to just understand there might be a little bit more, temper and acrimonious energy. The 11th degree of Aquarius may be a little bit more combative and acrimonious. And also, something too about this degree, this could be something where you might have somebody trying to do something out of selflessness or trying to help a friend out, and may inadvertently do something to that person's detriment based on the Sabian symbols. 11 degrees Aquarius, it could be like somebody that takes a board and has, like, doesn't realize there's nails in it, and they're trying to push a tire out of a ditch with it or something, or you're trying to pry it out, and then they accidentally or inadvertently puncture the tire. Might not be the best example, but you understand what I'm saying. The well-meaning intentions might go completely wrong. So it's important to look at all, if you're trying to do something to help somebody out or do some beneficial for somebody, make sure you're evaluating and assessing it properly, and that you're not going to face any repercussions because of it. Now, it's also important to look at the electional aspects this makes at this time, as that, of course, could that could impact this delineation and interpretation. Now, The thing about this is I noticed that this full moon in Aquarius is going to be involved in a fixed T-square configuration. Of course, when you have a full moon in astrology, of course, it always makes the opposition to the sun. So you're going to have the opposition between the sun in Leo and moon in Aquarius, and both are going to be squared by Uranus in Taurus. That's going to be the midpoint or focal point of the configuration. Now, the thing about this is, I talked about in the previous video in part one, well, we're going to have, this, there's something going on with this Microsoft, you're talking about this Microsoft, planetary computer. When you have, first I want to break down this thing with the configuration. When you have the sun in Leo, of course, that could be the basic want of wanting attention, notoriety, recognition, getting accolades, getting applause for one's efforts. That's what the want could be at the time. When you have the moon in Aquarius, that could be that emotional need for doing something that could just benefit humanity, for the collective good of others, working collectively with others, and not getting being lauded, necessarily praised, or standing out for the effort. So that's where those signs are in opposition. The fact is, you're going to have Uranus and Taurus making the square to both of them. That's the midpoint, and that's the place of over accentuation or emphasis. Now, that could be, when you're talking about Uranus and Taurus, I think that can manifest a lot in this. You're talking about this Microsoft planetary computer, because you're talking about Uranus can be associated with electronics, with computers. And Taurus is the sign, I would say, is associated with the Earth more so than even the other two signs. Taurus is very fixed. It's an Earth sign. It's very solid, like rock. And I would say Taurus is the sign associated with the Earth. So that is a way where people can satisfy both ends, I think. And in terms of doing things that are, Microsoft getting what they want in terms, they're obviously going to be globally recognized for this. And I don't know what stage they're going to be on in terms of this planetary computer, whether it's reached its fruition or not, but I could see where they're going to be at least making a lot of progress and headway as far as this goes at or around this time of this full moon in Aquarius. You satisfy the need for that recognition, that sun in Leo, and also the moon in Aquarius, doing something that's going to benefit humanity and doing things for the better, for the good of others, and not necessarily wanting a tremendous amount of applause, but you can actually get both. And it's kind of like lighting the candle on both ends when you have a configuration like this. And anyway, now, another thing is that other electional transits, of course, could be intensified and amplified at this time because they're taking place at the time of the full moon in Aquarius. Now, we're going to have Mars and Aries make a conjunction to the black moon Lilith in Aries. Now, this could manifest in a multitude of ways. You're talking about Mars, the planet of violence and volatility, and Aries can be associated with law enforcement. You could be in a situation where law enforcement, it's something, and the fact that you're having this making the conjunction to the black moon Lilith. Black moon Lilith energy can manifest in something that's unveiled that people might have wanted to have suppressed for some time. So I'm thinking we might be finding out more about certain violence and volatility associated with law enforcement that might have been held back, that the numbers, the violent numbers, the excessive violence might be more than we actually were cognizant of previously, or we might see more of a proliferation of this at this time. Because remember, the black moon Lilith could also be nefarious energy as well, and you have this violent energy with Mars in Aries, so it's telling me at this time we might see an escalation in violent acts at this time, more so than usual, because you're having Mars making all these Mars and Aries making all these adverse aspects that square to Pluto, which of course could manifest in difficulty controlling one's anger and impulsive actions. And you have the square to Jupiter as well, and it's really, and then you have the conjunction to the black moon Lilith. So I just would be very careful at this time. People, especially if you're living in an environment where the area is more turbulent and violent, and you have a higher, as far as crime rate, as far as violence goes. Now, Another thing to look at too is that it's important to look at the transits to transits at this time to your natal chart can be amplified and intensified as well because they're taking place at the time of this full moon in Aquarius. Hold on a moment, people. Now, thing is, like in my for me, I'm going to have the transit Mars in Aries making a square to my natal Mars in Cancer. Now, a lot of times you don't hear a lot about transits, like whether it's in videos or on, online, where people are talking about transits from a planet that actually is in that aspect to that same natal placement with that same planet for your natal placement in your chart. Now, in this case, when you have transit Mars squaring your own Mars, I mean, sometimes it could result in some injuries, for some impulsive actions, because Mars can be associated with accidents and injuries, and you're talking about Mars and Aries could be obviously very impulsive and impetuous. So I have to be careful about accidents that could impulsive actions. The fact that this transit's going to fall in my 12th house could be tied into self-undoing, squaring my natal Mars in Cancer in the 3rd house, which could be some issue where it might be in the home. And also remember, the 3rd house could be associated with the hands and the arms, and there could be greater propensity for injury with that. And also too, another way this may manifest and pan out for me is that the transit Mars in the 12th house could sometimes manifest in depleted or dissipated energy. So it might be harder for me to do that get up and go, to do the fact it's making a square to the Mars in Cancer, to taking action, and whether it's in this occult astrological communications, or whether I'm trying to do something in connection that's home related and a short journey, because around that time I may be doing something, trying to do something, or at least take some kind of action in connection with that. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.